I'm so excited to hear your experience. As you can see from the slide, Shikhar has done a lot of corporate events and being a voice of global leadership platform.
It's recording, no?
And I would really say, Shikhar, that I really like these words that you don't win the silver, but you lose the gold. So over to you, Shikhar.
Thank you, Ankita. Yeah, so like I said, you don't win the silver, you lose the gold, and it's so nice to see all of you in person. I met all of you at an event last year, and last year sounds so distant now. We're just into 2023, and I feel this year has just passed by. And I think it's a matter of perception. If you want the year to pass by fast, you think it passes by fast. If you want the year to pass by slow, you think it passes by slow. I think it's all in the mind, and I think that's exactly what our topic is today because I think when we talk about LGBTQ plus, I think it's got to do a lot with how we think. It's got to do a lot with how we position ourselves. It's got to do a lot with what we understand about the environment around us. And it's a very sensitive topic, no doubt, but it's also important for us to understand it, and how we can frame it, what are the words which can be used, and how our environment looks at it. I think that's really important. And Ankita, as you were talking about, you don't win the silver, you lose the gold. I have done events of all nature. I've done events from with human beings and with dogs, and that leads to me my second topic: why LGBTQ community and emotional intelligence are really related to each other. Because I feel we are living in a world where we have to move towards EQ instead of IQ, and we have to move towards a world which is about storytelling. And we are living in very uncertain times, which we have seen in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. And I think if a company or if a community or if a family can understand what LGBTQ plus is all about, then I think it makes you more powerful as a person. I believe change is the only constant in life, and it's so nice to see Telstra really trying to make a difference here in terms of diversity and inclusion, in terms of talking about topics which not many people would like to talk about because it's about being frank, being open, being honest. And I think that's a skill which is very, very important in today's day and age. When I look at Telstra, or when I look at you talk about products, you talk about services, you talk about profit for different centers, but I think the key changer for any company to be a global leader, and that's for all of you, is how you can influence people's opinion. And that's where this topic today is really important. I believe we're living in a world where we believe in head counts, but I think we need to start believing in heart counts. Right? I think that's very important. Your heart is really important, because if your heart is in the right place, I think everything falls in place. Even though I believe in the saying, you don't win the silver, you lose the gold, which is very aspirational, which is very metaphorical, and which is very philosophical, and it also speaks about the philosophy of what we all believe in. The art of listening, for example, is a topic which many people have spoken about, saying this is what the art of listening is all about. But for me, if I have to put it in plain terms, the art of listening is also creating an environment where the other person is heard. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. It's about just listening in without any judgments. And that's a tough thing to do as individuals, because we all have a preconceived notions in our head. And somewhere I think my philosophy, my journey has allowed me to look into things from that perspective, because I've worked with different stakeholders. I've worked a lot with animals. I've done work with different philosophers, celebrities, across different continents. I've worked with different cultures. So somewhere that also acclimatizes you to how to react to different situations, where sometimes it's not just important about expressing your point of view, but also about listening in. And I think listening in is really, really important. It's never been given due importance. I think the art of listening, where you create the right environment where people can be heard, is really important in today's day and age. And that's exactly why we are talking about this very interesting topic today. You also need to spend time with the people who look at the world differently. If all the peas are similar in a pod, then I don't think it makes much of a difference. You will never really grow as a person. I believe, if I'm talking to all of you today, I think all of you are as colorful or as vibrant as a rainbow. And that's what pride is all about, right? And we all are very different, because we all have different motivations, different aspirations, different tastes in music also. Though I must say I love the music, like it's very deep, and it actually makes you think. So I think music is something which allows us to think aloud. And I might digress a bit, but I have to talk to you about this. When I heard the music, I was thinking about this line from Shawshank Redemption, I don't know how many of you have seen this movie called Shawshank Redemption, but I would recommend everybody to watch this movie because this movie is about hope and redemption. And in Shawshank Redemption, there is a scene where the lead actor, he's a banker who's been framed for 40 years of imprisonment for murdering his wife and her lover, which he didn't do. And this movie in its entirety is about hope and aspiration. And there's a situation in the movie where he gets to play his favorite music. And the convicts ask him, why did he play his favorite music? He said, you can take my freedom away from me. You can imprison me in a prison. You can do whatever you want with me. But you cannot take away my taste for music. That's my freedom. And I think that's what music does. Music has no boundaries. Music can touch your soul in more ways than one. And if you're having this conversation right now on this virtual platform where we all are in different parts of the world and different parts of India, like I'm sitting out from Kerala and talking to you, it just goes to show that we all can connect in more ways than one through emotional intelligence and about this very interesting topic today. And I believe we haven't spoken enough about this. I don't think companies talk about it. I don't think countries talk about it. I don't think families talk about it. I don't think our schools talk about it. I don't think our education institutions talk about it enough. Because this is very, very important. This is something which is very personal to all of us, being a part of the LGBTQ community. And it goes without saying, if you go to Google or if you go to YouTube and type something, you'll get a lot of information around it. But the point is, information is there, but how do you act on that information? How do you understand? How do you understand how sensitive that information is? And I think that's where it's very important to understand what this community is about. It's very important to understand the aspirations. It's very important to understand what are the right kind of words which can be used. It's very important to understand how you can build a community here. It's like, for example, if you're dealing with somebody from the LGBTQ community, you don't ask them a bunch of questions. That's where the art of listening really comes in. I think it's very, very important for us to be our own best friend, for us to understand ourselves inside out. It's easier said than done, but I think the pandemic has taught us a lot of things. One is how we can be comfortable in our own company and without really waiting for any external gratification. So I think that's very important, where you don't ask a bunch of questions. Give that person that space, that environment which is required. When somebody gets space and somebody gets that freedom to just be themselves, you don't know what they're capable of. And we have seen that, right? If all of you are leaders in your companies, all of you are managing teams, if you create space for the employees in your own company, which I've seen at close quarters. I've interacted very closely with Harish, for example, and I've seen the kind of camaraderie he has with different employees in a company. It goes without saying, it makes you very free. It makes you wanting to do whatever you can to achieve success. So I think one thing which is very important is, don't play matchmaker here. We as Indians love to play matchmaker. Whenever we see anybody from the LGBTQ community, we want to play matchmaker. I think if you look around you, the media also, if you look at the Netflix specials, the Amazon specials, everything is about matchmaking. Shadi kara do bas, get somebody to work with that person. But it's not really important. It may not be important at all. We don't need to play matchmaker here, because I think, like I said earlier, we have got everything available at our fingertips. What is really important is for us to know ourselves inside out, and giving people that environment, giving people that space, giving people that luxury to just open up when they need to open up. Or if they don't want to open up, let them not open up at all. Right? So the reason I'm saying this is because every voice in the trans community is different from each other. That makes it very special. That makes it very creative. Think about it. Everybody is not alike. Everybody is different. And because everybody is different, their thoughts are very different, their aspirations are very different, their ideas are very different, their opinions are very different, which makes it all the more interesting to work with them. So in a community, if you can get all these creative minds together, just think the kind of output you might get, just think the kind of goals you might achieve, just think the kind of fun times or fun moments you might have with them. And there are various ways by we can make the LGBTQ plus community inclusive in the workplace. I think one thing which is very important is, a lot of people have stress, mental health issues when you have to hide your identity at work. I think it's very important for letting people feel comfortable. I think once you let people feel comfortable, stress, mental health, ill health goes out of the window completely. Also, for example, there should be very interesting policies on parental leave, adoption, bereavement leave, gender neutral toilets, for example. Training, for example, should really focus on bullying. We have all of us in school and college, we've all been bullied in some form. We've all been bullied in our families too, right? And somehow we have taken it in the right spirit and said, okay, yeah, this is all a part of it. But I think somewhere we need to understand the line, that Lakshman Rekha, like they say, what is correct and what is not correct. I think those policies need to be in place in terms of bullying. What are the right words which can be used, what are the right words which cannot be used, in terms of and how do we condemn discrimination, in terms of inappropriate comments, in terms of harassment and bullying. If you go by the movies around you, typically Hindi movies around you, they have made a complete hogwash out of it. They have just whitewashed one particular community. They made the LGBTQ community look like, like a smoke screen, which is not the case at all. I was just looking back. I was thinking, like, what are the characters we have from Hollywood or Bollywood? And I was thinking about the Oscar awards which happened yesterday. You have the Oscar awards for best actor, best actress. Why can't we have the Oscar awards just for one performer? Just the best performer. You don't need to. You can be gender neutral there, right? Why do you want best actor, best actress? Just have one performer. That solves everything. But I think we, as a community, we as a world, we as a family, are conditioned to differentiate always, where we want male, female, everything around it. And now we are living in a world where things are just getting disintegrated, right? So it's very important for us to be very inclusive here, without being without being intrusive, inclusive without being intrusive, and also being very exclusive. I feel if companies understand that if you can create an inclusive co-working atmosphere, you can only succeed. Because out there in the real world, if people see that Telstra, or for example anyone who understands their employees, who understands their workforce, and does not discriminate between them in terms of uh, race, religion, color, or ethnicity, or even their preference, I think that company or that community will do very well. Because I would really buy a product from there, because I would say that they don't discriminate based on any things they see around them, and that what makes them very special. So I think it's very important for us, if you want to be a world leader, if you want to be a world leader, if you want to really strike out and be the leader who can make a difference, it's about getting all the voices together. If all the voices sound alike, I don't think you're making much of a difference. If all the voices sound different, then I think you're making a difference. And that's where the LGBTQ community makes a big difference, because, like I said earlier, all of them are very different. All of them are very different. All their aspirations are very different. All their inspirations are very different. All their stories are very different. And that's what makes them special. That's what makes them stand out. So if we can understand what makes them stand out and give them that space, just like the hair on my head, which is flying in all directions, I think we can do wonders. I think that's very important. It's also about like I said earlier, it's about condemning discrimination, bullying at work, and bullying can take various forms. We've seen that, right, in schools, colleges, even in families, and about for example, even the policies on adoption, for example, bereavement leave, gender neutral toilets, and our training also should specifically focus on stopping bullying. But I think the bigger question here is, how do you set up LGBTQ networks where you create a safe space for the employees, which basically means you create a culture of acceptance. You appoint LGBTQ allies who really work with people from the LGBTQ community, and it's very important for people who come in here as volunteers to come with a culture of acceptance, to come with a culture of listening, to come with a culture of understanding what it takes to be a part of the LGBTQ community. So there's a network which needs to be created, and which and that's also has a far-reaching impact on the culture of the company. It's also about listing your pronouns, which I'm basically saying is, we see all around us, right? Social media, if you use LinkedIn right now, it's about he, they, she, right? It's about the kind of pronouns you use, the kind of it's about the abbreviations used, it's about the email signatures used. I think it's very important for us to understand a grammar. So I think right now we are living in a world where we need to be sensitive to our surroundings. We need to be sensitive to people around us and go along with that. And I'm saying going along with that, it basically means you be sensitive to the people around you, to the different aspirations people have, different ideas they have, different thoughts they have, different sexualities they have. But you need to go along with that and keep moving forward as one unit. If you can do that as a unit, if you can do that as a family, if you can do that as a community, if you can do that as a company, I think you're a world leader. It goes without saying. Because if you can manage your employees well, who have these different aspirations in mind, which is so personal to them, and you can make them think that, what, we're doing this for you, we are making this happen for you, we are thinking from your perspective. I think that is a true sign of emotional intelligence also. That is a true sign of gratitude. That is a true sign of the world we're living in, because I think the 21st century is going to be a world which is about emotional intelligence, which is going to be about storytelling, which is also about being kind. I think being kind, not many people talk about it, but being kind is a very, very important strength. It's a very important trait, and that's where we as a community come in and try to be kind to each other, irrespective of how people are for each other. And we have seen in the past history, wars have been fought, communities have fought with each other on very, very stupid, very, very trivial issues on race, ethnicity, color, culture. And now we have seen that, more than the wars, it's the biological wars which will kill us. So we don't need to do anything about it. I think we will die a slow death or a painful death if we don't heed to our surroundings. So it's very important for us to create a very close knit culture. It's very important to give space to people from the LGBTQ community, create a good network of people. List your pronouns, list your abbreviations, understand the official communication, how it needs to be changed, because it's very important to add pronouns and email signatures in social media profiles. Clearly stating your pronouns, that is be, the, she, he, him, they, them. I know it's new for all of you, but we have to make a start somewhere. I think that's really important. But I think the overriding factor in all this is how open are you to this change? Which brings me back to my first point. Change is the only constant in life. And when you're dealing with people, you have to change accordingly. And change with a smile on your face, change with the fact that, if you get more people, of different aspirations, different viewpoints, different ideas, it only makes the team much more well-rounded, much more diverse, much more dynamic, much more challenging. And the team is ready for any challenges which they face, which is good for all of you, I believe, right? Because all of you work in different teams and all of you work with different individuals, different cultures. If you can have people with different viewpoints, I think really, really makes a difference. And it's also important to understand how we can incorporate gender neutral language, which basically means you avoid bias towards a particular gender, using they instead of he, she. And also in company documentation is a good step. It's, for example, if you're introducing your boyfriend or girlfriend to your family, you could introduce them as your partner, which makes things more simpler. I'm just giving an example here. Basically, we also need to create an LGBTQ history and events. When I'm saying important days and events in the history of LGBTQ should be celebrated in the company. Like we have other days which are important. These days are also important, and it should be very volunteer driven. There should be visibility of it at every particular juncture. There should be blogs written about it. There should be audio notes available all around it. There should be enough and more information about it on social media about why it's important to celebrate these days. This, I think, plays a very important. This has a very important note in terms of inclusion and awareness of LGBTQ throughout the community, throughout the company, throughout the family. And I think that's very important, where we create a history of LGBTQ and events. I'll take it one step ahead and say, why not create a museum room of LGBTQ, where you can create a room which has different posters related to it? Because we see it happening around the world. We see people celebrating the Pride Month. It's happening in India, it's happening across the world. Why can't we create a room, for example, in Telstra, which celebrates this? You have a museum. I've seen different companies having a museum, having a storyboard of how the company has progressed over a period of time in terms of timeline. Why can't you have this for the LGBTQ community? If you do that, trust me, that will make a big difference, because you will be a game changer. You're thinking out of the box, and people will feel they are a part of the big Telstra family, irrespective of how irrespective of the sexual orientation, irrespective of the ideas, thoughts, opinions, irrespective of how they feel and think. But once you create this kind of environment, once you create this inclusive and exclusive environment, where you create a museum room, for example, I'm just thinking aloud, and you get people to think about this and write about this, about what they feel about the LGBTQ community, then it becomes, I think, even more special. It creates a culture of acceptance. And it's very important, because I see, if you see around us, we see a lot of people talking about culture. We need to create the right culture. We see all these hotshot leaders talking about culture. We see all these hotshot people talking. What is really is culture? Culture is a culture of acceptance. Culture is accepting people as they are. Do we do that? I don't think we do that at all. I don't think we have done that as families. I don't think we've done that when we were in schools and colleges. I don't think we do it in the corporate circle also. This is the right time to make that change. This is the right time to understand that we need to have a culture of acceptance, where for example, you could have happy hours, you could have marathons, you could have a story theme for for people from the LGBTQ community with children, read stories to them. You could have movie recommendations from people from the LGBTQ community. What is the movie recommendation? Would they recommend a movie like, for example, Birdcage, for example, or suggestions from them, blog posts from them, group messages from them, fundraisers from them. So this is one way, by getting them to be a part of the larger community. By using fundraisers, marathons, storytelling sessions, asking them movie recommendations, poems of the week, blog post, talk about which things which really matter, your town hall presentations, and last but not the least, this is something I was thinking of as a creative person. Why not an employee curated art gallery? Everybody's an artist here, right? Why not have an employee curated art gallery and get the people from the LGBTQ community to lead it, to be a part of it, and get them involved in this. So I think, and it should be a mix of everybody. It should be a mix of everybody coming in together, trying to make a difference. It should be a very cohesive unit, which looks at art not just a passion area, but something which can drive people together. Because I feel somewhere all of us are artists, right? And the word artist is used a lot nowadays, but can art really make a difference here? I think art can make a difference. In terms of life is not a fairy tale, right? Everybody thinks that life is about the good versus bad, the bad versus good, but I think there's much more to it. Life was never meant to be a bed of roses, and I think it's very important for us to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. When I say that, we are living in a very disruptive environment. We're living in an environment where change is happening all around us. Now, if change is happening all around us, it's very important for us to understand that we're dealing with people also who are very different in the way they think, in the way they're brought up, in the way they look at life around them. So for that, it's very important to understand what the LGBTQ community is, what their ideas are, what their aspirations are, and these are the various ways by which we can bring them in together. By building, for example, gender-neutral toilets, by building a museum room, by getting fundraisers in together, running marathons together, curating an art gallery together, storytelling sessions for the children's, movie suggestions what they could do. So, for example, you got employees who come in, from a different part of India to a certain part of India, asking them what they would suggest to places people could visit, for example, in Bangalore or in Chennai or in Australia, for example. It's very important for us to understand that we have to look at this in terms of, not just in terms of creating a culture of acceptance, but not just in creating a very inclusive family, but also the kind of words we would use when we talk to them, giving them the space they need, and just thinking as one family, because in a family there are different people, people have different ideas, thoughts, aspirations. It's very important for us to understand that. And this leads to the larger picture of emotional intelligence. I hark back to emotional intelligence because I genuinely believe emotional intelligence will make the world go round. You might think that, he uses this word a lot, but emotional intelligence and storytelling is what leaders talk about everywhere. If you look around you, if you look at world leaders around you, people who have made a difference to everybody else's lives, from the likes of Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, charismatic leaders, all of them have something which is very common, which is emotional intelligence and storytelling, and the culture of acceptance, and the culture of accepting people as they are. And I think we need to understand that anyone from the LGBTQ community is special. Everybody has, we need to look at it from that perspective. We need to give them that space. We need to let them, open up when they need to open up. If they don't want to open up, let them not open up. But the point is, you don't want to play matchmaker here. You don't want to bully them into questions. You don't want them to pressurize them. Give people the space they need. I think we all need. See, it's, for example, I'm a creative artist and I like swimming against the tide. I would not be doing what I'm doing without the support of my parents or my wife. They gave me the support to go ahead and ask the right questions, to go ahead and do what I like and love doing. And I think it's very important that we have that support. So in a company like Telstra, which is driven by camaraderie, which is driven by culture, which is driven by winning, and which is driven by working in cross-functional teams, it's very important for us to open our eyes and be sensitive to people from the LGBTQ plus community, and understand that all of them are very different, and that's what makes them very, very special. Don't put people in boxes. People are not meant to be boxes, only when they die, that is. I think that's when you put in boxes, I believe. But don't put people in boxes till then. Nobody's meant to be put in boxes. I feel we are all different, and that's what makes us very special. And I believe ignorance isn't bliss. I think our education institutions had to had a more important role to play. Unfortunately, they didn't. They could have taught us much more about LGBTQ plus community and what's it about and how do we look at people with different viewpoints. And now is the right time to make that change. So you can make the change now at the age of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. The idea is how do you make that change? The idea is how do you open eyes to things which are happening around you. The idea is how do you work together with somebody who's got different tastes, views, and different standpoints, because ultimately everybody wants to win here. Ultimately, everybody wants to work together as one family. Ultimately, everybody wants to collaborate and co-create and work as a cohesive unit. That's what makes, I think, Telstra very special, and that's what the LGBTQ community is all about. I think it's a very creative community. It's a community which thinks very differently, and everybody's got their own story. So I think we need to create a culture of acceptance. We need to let people open up because everybody's got stories, and everybody's got stories which they're dying to tell. Like I'm telling you right now, right? So it's very important for us to let them tell their stories, and for that we need to create the right environment. It could be in terms of just something as simple as creating a museum room. It could be something as simple as curating an art gallery. It could be something as simple as creating a LGBTQ history month, where we talk about it and make it a part of our social calendar. It could be something as simple as the language which you use. For example, you can evaluate the current language used in job descriptions and replace any gender coded terms with neutral language. It's very simple. We have done that. We have seen change happening around us, right? And see, the pandemic is the best example. The pandemic taught us that we can do things virtually too. We're doing things virtually right now. So when change happens around you, you have to make the difference to your lives and to other people's lives. And if you can be in a situation where you can make a difference to somebody else's life by your ideas, thoughts, and opinions, why not make the difference? I think at the end of the day, we all have one single heartbeat which beats, right? So let your like I said earlier, I think let our lives be ruled by heartbeats, not by head counts, because head counts will come and go, which we've seen in the pandemic. Fortunately or unfortunately, we all lost loved ones close to us during the pandemic, but still we're surviving and we're still moving along. We're still talking about it. That's what makes life so special. Uh, so it's very very important for us to understand what the LGBTQ plus community is all about, what their ideas are, what their thoughts are, what their aspirations are. And I think Telstra as a community needs to build that culture, needs to build that that family where everybody can come in together. And the only way to do that is you create volunteers, you create allies for the LGBTQ plus community, you make them part of the mainstream in terms of marathons, in terms of art galleries, in terms of museum rooms, in terms of gender neutral toilets, and make them a part of the larger discussion. And don't pressurize them. Make them open up when they want to open up. I think it's everybody has a choice, right? Let it be their choice. Let it not be your choice. And on that note, I want to end with, on the choicy note, say that you don't win the silver, you lose the gold. Thank you. And I can take any
That
questions
was
also.
really
Thank you.
amazing, Shekhar. It was so good to hear from you. We really like, and it really motivates us to let's make a difference to D&I and Telstra and everyone's life.
Thank you.
All right, so now let's move on. If anybody have any questions, you can reach out to Shekhar. Lakshmi just put his website or his page on the chat, so you can reach out to him and know